The following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Heiar Insurance, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands.
When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand and nothing's going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, babe, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, now all you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got a friend.
95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. This is the time we get together every Friday to help you with big things that you are not expected to have any answers to when it comes to retirement, magical journey of Medicare, the ins and outs of the proper insurance. That's why your Heiar Insurance team joins us for Senior Solutions Fridays at 11:10, and why you can always pop over to their office. You can call Heiar Insurance because they can help you with many different things. And today we are shifting our focus, which is part of the reason for the beautiful song from James Taylor, You've Got a Friend, because when I think about all of the friends and people that loved Uncle Bill, who sadly left us yesterday, the Heiar family is right at the top of the list. And when I talked with Sandy yesterday, she reminded me that, feels like it was just yesterday and then such a long time ago that John Moser left us. Sandy reminded me that I was the one who reached out with that phone call when John had passed, just like I did when Bill left us. And love you guys. I'm really happy that you're here today. And I know that, Matt, when I saw you earlier this week, and we were talking about so many different things. One of the last things you had said to me as we were leaving the Heiar Insurance office there at the Heritage Mall was, we're going to have to be on the air together after this happens, because we both just had a feeling that Bill wouldn't be with us all that longer.
Yeah, it was tough. And I wish I wasn't right for once on that one. But like Wade said earlier today, it's we're celebrating his life. We're remembering all the great times, and he would not want this to be center of attention at all.
No, and I said something echoing of that when we went into hometown today, because I was wondering, yesterday it just feels like such a blurry whirlwind. And I remember thinking, do we even have hometown today tomorrow? And Sherry asked, what do you think Bill would say to that? Like, he'd be
we know
PISSED. So, and, I shared with folks when I think about, I knew Bill in the blink of an eye only for a little over 6 years. And he was so loved for decades by so many. I thought about One Night Stand in Beaver Dam Area Community Theater, and that's where our guests were from this morning. We had members of the local vocals, who, much like Bill, really loved. So that made sense, in addition to not wanting to hear some of that thunder up above, like, come on, Amy, what are you doing? But I remember when John had passed, and we were just getting to know one another. We had only really met a couple of weeks before that shock and that sad news hit us. And I want to talk about how that friendship came to be. And it's been a long time since we've talked about that, Sandy and Matt, but that is really, what sparked it. And you knew and loved John and Bill for decades. So before we open up the phone lines, because I know we do want to hear from folks if they have, memories that they want to share about Uncle Bill. Of course, those calls are welcomed at 885-4446. But Sandy Heiar, how did you get to meet John and Bill?
They're the reason we're here.
I know. Well, I listened to the radio. I listened to their morning show for years. I mean, everybody did, right? I mean, you're in the car, you're going to work. I was in the car going to PALS, a Partners in Learning program where you mentor a student. And all of a sudden, I'm listening to Bill and John, and they started talking about Medicare. And I'm thinking, what? So, of course, I have to listen in. And then people were calling in and saying, well, I have a supplement and I pay $800 a month. And then someone else called in, well, I have a supplement, I don't pay anything. And then they're like questioning all this and making all these comments. And I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much misinformation here. I mean, it was driving me crazy. So I got to my PALS, which was at South Beaver Dam at the time. And when I got there, I sat in the parking lot because I always arrived early, and I tried calling in. The phone lines were jammed.
You were not getting through.
I called and called and called. And I've never called in before because I am one that if I wanted to call in or like to sell something or get a recipe when Brenda was here, I would have my mom do it for me.
Oh,
Yep.
Because
I
you
was
were
a big
shy about
chicken.
being on the radio. You were
Yes.
shy about that.
So it was not like me, but I think I just had enough fire in me from listening to all the people calling in, and then Bill and John are like, "Oh, what? How can that be?" And Bill's like, "Well, I don't think I have a supplement," And I'm like, "Oh my goodness,
These boys
this
are
is
confused."
crazy, yeah." And they didn't know because they were both on group health insurance, and I don't think John was not Medicare eligible at that time, but Bill was. So anyway, I couldn't get through. So after my Partners in Learning program with my student, I get in the car and I'm driving home, and I'm thinking, I just have to call. And by then I was losing a little bit of nerve.
That fire had kind of dwindled.
It did. But I thought, okay, so I call and I ask for John Moser, who I had never met personally. I just heard him on the radio all the time. Didn't know what he was like and how he would respond to me calling. But I did. I called and asked for him, and he gets on the phone. And I said, there was a lot of misinformation on that call this morning. I mean, on the morning show, and I'm like, this is what it should be, and this and this. And he's like, well, will you do me a favor? Will you just come in and talk to Bill and I?
Oh.
That's how he approached it. He had a plan.
Okay. He
I didn't
always
know
had a
it.
plan.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize that, though, because I had never met them. Heard them on the radio for years, and you really don't even know what they look like.
So what year was that? Do you recall specifically? I know sometimes
All right.
it's hard to...
So Bill was just on Medicare
Okay.
at 65.
All right.
So
And now he's 82.
17, 18 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
Are you doing math?
I am. Keep talking.
Okay. So anyway, I come in, and whoever was at the front desk takes me back, and I go into this room, and there's Bill and John sitting there, and I'm thinking, okay, what are they up to here, So we chatted for a bit, and John's like, how would you like to do a radio show on Medicare and retirement and all of those things? I'm like, nope, no way.
Wouldn't even entertain it for a
No,
second.
it was not my gig, and I knew that. So we talked a little bit more, and John's like, how about commit for 1 year? I'm like, no.
Not even one show.
Absolutely not. Yeah. It just wasn't an option, and I knew I couldn't do it. So then finally he said, how about 3 months? Because he said, when you do something like this, you can't just do it for a month or 2
That's
months
right.
and expect results. I mean, it takes a long time, to develop that listening
right.
audience and such. So when I left that day, I committed to doing it on Fridays for the 45 minutes for 3 months.
Okay. How
was
are
it.
you feeling? Were you like, oh, what have I just done? Or were you feeling like,
Well,
I got this?
Well, John told you that he's like, I'll be right by you, right? And
Yes.
I'll be talking with you. So you weren't just by yourself.
No.
I know, but you need to be able to, answer questions and, call in and
On
things
the
like
spot,
that.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I didn't know John personally then either. So I didn't know quite how it would go. And I heard him on the radio, so I knew he was very good, but he wasn't good on Medicare. I knew that. Neither of them were. So I remember being in that meeting and talking about Medicare, and Bill's like, well, I'm 65, but I'm not on Medicare. And I'm like, are you sure you're not on Medicare A? You know, because with working, he didn't need Medicare B. And he's like, nope, I'm not. So he pulls out his wallet, and he has boatloads of cards. And I mean, his wallet was thick.
He's a popular guy.
Yes. So he's digging and digging and digging. And I said, it's red, white, and blue. And he keeps digging. All of a sudden, he pulls it out and shows it to me. Is it this? I'm like, yep, that's it. I said, you are on Medicare A. He goes, well, how come I don't have the other one then that you talked about?
Yeah.
I said, you don't need it because you're on group health. And granted, Bill did not go on Medicare B until like age 80.
Wow.
So that is quite old to be going
Yeah.
on Part B Medicare, but he worked. He worked and had group health insurance. He did not need it. And most people are panicking like, oh my gosh, if I don't take it now, I'm not going to be able to get on it later. Well, obviously he could. So anyway, I left agreeing to 3 months, and then started John and I. But when John would take off, you know, John loved to hunt, he would put Bill in there. Bill was a nervous wreck
No
in there.
way.
Yes. He said, I'm just not comfortable. He would have all these notes and all this stuff written down. He goes, Sandy, what are we going to talk about? And I said, Bill, it's going to be fine. I'm like, just have a conversation with me. He said, but I don't know anything about what you did. I'm like, it's okay. I mean, he used to do the show when John was gone, but he didn't like it. I could just tell. I mean, he got more comfortable as time went on, but he was very, very nervous. I mean, it was just out of what his normal routine was. Mm-hmm. And who would have thunk that Bill, who's on the radio forever, did not want to do senior solutions with me. I shouldn't say that. He never said he didn't want to. He just always, I think he would like go online or something and look up Medicare stuff, and he would like have all these questions to ask me.
I love that.
He knew, yes, he wanted to have an agenda.
Wanted to be prepared.
And he did, where John and I just kind of, I mean, I would come up with some kind of an agenda before I came in, but John and I would just kind of be off the cuff a little bit, because he would throw out questions to me that wasn't on my agenda, obviously. So, you know, he didn't never even want to ask me what I was going to talk about. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so that was kind of how, you know, we got started with the radio show and meeting Bill and John. And then, of course, we started hanging out with John and Sue and going for dinner, and we'd have him over to the house and going to Packer games and Badger games. We took John to his first Badger game.
What?
He was so excited.
Oh, I bet.
And we didn't tailgate because it was an early morning, so we went to breakfast. And John had the pancakes. He loves pancakes. That's the thing he remembered from that Badger game, was the pancakes he had when we went out for breakfast.
Nothing to do with the game. Let's focus on the food.
Yes.
The pancakes.
Yes, pancakes. But anyway, so that's kind of the story of how Senior Solutions got started. They named it, not me. They said, what do you think of this? I'm like, yeah, I guess, because I'm only doing it 3 months. And then I'm done.
Who's laughing now, Sandy?
But you know what? I was new in business, and there was a cost factor. You know, I had just opened an office in town. So that was, you know, before that, I had an office in Fond du Lac, which the company paid for. I did not. So coming to Beaver Dam, I had to pay for the office. I had to pay for my advertising. And then all of a sudden, they throw the radio show at me, which was a chunk for me with, you know, being new in town. So... But it all worked out. They encouraged me all the time, keep going, and they made sure that people they would talk to people about it, so that people were listening. John would always ask people, so he's like, you know, people are listening, so keep doing it. Good. So then it turned into 4 months, 5 months, a year, and here I am. Here I am.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's wonderful to know how it started and the evolution, you know, turning into real solid friendships. And I didn't know that Bill was ever nervous about having to host Senior Solutions with you.
Yeah.
And what you just shared there, Sandy, reminds me of conversation that I had with John when we knew John was going to retire, and he had approached me about hosting. And it sounds like I had a similar reaction as Bill, or I don't know anything about that. I can't
John
do
handpicked
that.
you.
And he did, and I didn't realize that at the time. And he said something almost exactly what you just did. We're just going to have a conversation. You're just going to have a conversation. And I was going to think about it over a weekend. And then I learned from you that he actually called you before I gave my decision to
Yes.
share I've got some exciting news about your show. And I hadn't, so he did the yes for me, and I appreciate that because I'm really happy that we get to work together and be together when, sadly things like what we're going through it's happening, and we had so much fun together celebrating Bill, Cheers to 60 years last year.
Yes.
And I choose my words very carefully. And I don't use that word legend very often because it is a big word. But Bill really is a legend. I said something to my husband this morning, and it's hard for me when someone that you love passes and then thinking about them in the past tense. And I had said something to Brian this morning about how, Bill was a legend. And Brian immediately said, he is a legend. And he will always be a legend. And we're so very blessed to have known him and to have been in his circle. What are some of your earliest memories of Bill, Matt?
Wow. It's just like it was always that familiar voice because the radio show was always, the morning show was always on every morning, before school.
At the house, yeah.
And I actually listened to it, because, two adults, just talking. I mean, they were talking about everything local, what was going on, or they made the school lunch menus. They were reading
the wiener soup.
Yeah, they were literally. We always waited for because it was about right before we got dropped off to school, and they still, because reading a lunch menu, that's pretty dry.
It is.
It's right up there with the obituaries.
Yeah, I bet you got excited though when you heard him say pizza was on the menu.
Well, it was
cheese.
just really exciting, and then how he always said, hopefully they don't have the weenie water soup again. And he always said that every day, and it was just so hilarious. But just actually putting the voice and the face together and meeting him and just how genuine he was. And, you do kind of feel like you're shaking a celebrity's hand, and then, yes, when my first time on the show with him, he kind of was saying that, like, should we talk about this or this? And I'm like, I don't have any notes. Like, I was like, usually with John, we just talked, and he's like, okay, all right, and he's like, we got this, bucko.
Bucko.
And it was just, but he was so good at his one-liners, and he was entertaining. So it felt like when I first met him, I was nervous, but I felt very comfortable because I put a face to the voice, and I felt like I knew him already.
Yeah.
So, and same with John, it was the same way. I'm like, didn't think he looked that way.
I know. You don't know what they look like, and it's so weird when you first meet them.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said that to me after listening to the radio show, and they came into my office, and they're like, "Oh, you're Sandy?" They're like, "I thought you'd be bigger."
Isn't that weird when people
I'm
do
like,
that?
I have a big voice. I don't know.
And you're like, okay, how do I react? Because I've gotten that over the years too. Like, I thought you were blonde and thought you were taller. I like being short and brunette. So I like who we are.
That's
we really
right.
loved Uncle Bill and really loved John. And when you talk about his one-liners, Matt, when we were together earlier this week, I laughed out loud and I shared this joke with my husband. It was something about how when someone would ask Bill, how long does it take you to get ready for the barn show? About 2 drinks.
About 2 drinks.
Yeah, he did
Yep.
say that.
Yeah, no, he was just, I mean, it was so funny how those guys were just best friends and brothers, and all the stories we heard, on the, what was that event? The
One Night Stand.
Yeah, the One Night Stand. I just didn't know like all this, but they did not. So they were the spotlight, they were the morning show. They were, the face basically, of the radio station, but they did not like the spotlight.
They didn't.
They did not like
That's true.
No.
being talked about. They did not like stories about them. And it's so crazy to think that it's like, this is what they do every day is, preach to the public. And then when the story turns about them, they're like, oh no,
Yeah.
I don't know.
We're going to spin that the other way.
But they were the same person.
They were out in the community all the time, like the brat fries and the pecker parties and events going on. I was thinking yesterday they were talking about the wild game feed coming up.
Yeah.
John always loved that.
Oh, I bet.
And Bill's like, the stuff they would eat there. He's like, no, I couldn't eat that. Any of that wild
He
stuff.
didn't
Yeah.
want any deep fried possum or anything like that.
No.
He
That
liked
and he didn't use a hanky. That was another conversation. I used to piggyback sometimes. My show would be on later after theirs was on in the morning. So I would listen, and then sometimes people would call in or they'd have a conversation. So I would bring it up on my show. And one day it was hankies.
Oh boy,
John Moser used a hanky. Not a lot of guys use hankies.
my dad did.
It's
Uncle Bill's
disgusting.
like, I don't use a hanky. I'm like, he's like, and John's like, well, what do you use? I use Kleenex. Oh, okay.
That's a whole show right there.
So not many people use hankies. I guess he's right. But anyway, yeah, Bill's like, no way, I'm not using a hanky.
That's gross.
Yeah, and then putting it back in my pocket again. He's like,
I'm not doing laundry.
So then when my show came on, I brought that up about the hankies, and I'm like, well, John, I know a couple people that use hankies. My husband and my banker and you. So for Christmas that year, I bought him hankies.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that was early on in our relationship, and I hadn't met Sue. So then John told me like a year or two later that Sue thought we were having an affair
Oh, my
because I bought him
goodness.
hankies.
A little hanky-panky.
Because she didn't listen. She didn't listen
good.
to my radio show, obviously. She didn't listen or listen to the morning show before. So I'm like, really? And John never told me for like a long, long time.
Did Sue end up telling you?
No. No, John did. But I brought it up to Sue then. I'm like, really, Sue?
I have to give you major props on many levels, but you were doing a great job for being a newbie on the air. Great job cross-promoting those different shows, Sandy Heiar. We're with your Heiar Insurance team this morning here for Senior Solutions. This is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Heiar Insurance, not WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Your phone calls are welcome. We'll open up the phone lines if you would like to share memories about Uncle Bill. 885-4446. 885-4446 is the studio line. Charlie Dern and or Wally in the studio producing the Slumberland Furniture Studios, keeping an eye on the text messages for us at 887-9595. You can text in at 887-9595. Coming up next Friday, we're inviting you to join us at the American Legion in Beaver Dam for a celebration of life for Uncle Bill McCullum. That will be happening from 4 to 7. We'll get together, share some memories, have some laughs, shed a few tears, and enjoy being together as we celebrate and remember Uncle Bill. When I started here 6 years ago, I had no idea who Bill McCullum was. And, I've been in radio for since 1989. And so when I started here, it was in a different role to be a marketing consultant. I wanted to learn a different side of the industry. And, all kinds of assignments and meetings and interviews throughout, a process that was a couple of weeks. And the very last part of that was being told that I would be working side by side with the top biller, top marketing consultant, and learned from him how to do things the right way. And I never met Bill during the course of these 3 weeks, and so I arrived at 100 Bill McCullum Way for my first day. Went back to the conference room for our sales huddle, and I saw Bill leaned up against the wall, and I don't know what I had pictured, but I was like, oh my goodness, like that's Bill McCullum, so we're going to be working together. No one ever told me about his legacy, because even 6 years ago, that legacy was still with us.
Oh, yes.
And it took no time at all when we would go out on appointments together that I knew, like, wow, this guy's a big deal, And I felt that and knew that because of those conversations that we would have when we walked in to see, maybe it was, Russ over at Hups Repair, or we were at WS Egg Center over in Columbus getting peanuts and, checking in for copy for the week. That was wonderful. And we shared an office together, and I remember learning that Bill was very private, so he didn't share a lot of personal things. And when you share an office together, you share some personal things.
No, not you.
I don't overshare about you. But I was like, wow, okay. So came up in conversation. He went to Brown College in Minneapolis for broadcasting. That's where I went to school as well. I'm getting things settled on my desk, and I put out my Dachshund coffee mug, and Bill opened up the cabinet. He had the exact same mug. He also loved Dachshunds. So just little things like that, and then learning about him. And I was thinking last night, like, we're going to miss so many things about him. I loved his laugh and his smile. Like, when he would smile, he just literally had a twinkle in his eye. And it's going to be missed, And I had a chance to talk with the president of the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association yesterday. We're pulling things together and helping Bill's family. And I had to reach out about some things that I had questions. And she returned my call and had wonderful things to say about both Bill and John, and specifically about what we do here at 100 Bill McCullum Way. She called it a different level of localism, kind of what you referred to earlier, Matt. And she told me that one of the things that she enjoys most about being the president of the Wisconsin Broadcasters Association is presenting the Legend Awards. And the first time that award was ever presented to two people, the same award.
Yes.
John Moser and Uncle Bill McCullum.
Yep.
What an honor.
I did not know that.
I did.
It's really
But
great.
they downplayed it. They
Totally.
Yep.
And what was, Bill went to go accept that award with Sue, John's wife, and family, and it's just another step on that path, that they had together, even though John had already left us,
Didn't they get an award like every year almost?
They did, and
The station does.
yeah, the
Oh, yeah.
station does. One of the recent awards that Uncle Bill had won was the Barn Show Proposal. He had ginned up somebody called in, a fan, and wanted to propose, to their significant other, and that happened live on the Barn Show.
Oh my goodness.
And that segment won an award. And then when we were celebrating Bill last year, Cheers to 60 Years, that couple was there.
Oh.
So that was, just really special
didn't
things
know
like
that.
Yeah. And this morning, hearing from someone who had shared that 5 generations of their family listened to John and Bill. That's amazing. That's decades, so many years there. So looking forward to getting together with the fans and friends and family that love Bill so much next Friday at the American Legion here in Beaver Dam from 4 to 7. And the phone lines are open if you'd like to join the conversation with Sandy and Matt Heiar and myself about Uncle Bill as we reminisce, 885-4446. And you can also text at 887-9595. One of the things that Bill had shared with me when we were in that office together was being on the air when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And
I heard that.
We were working, and I was like, what? That's a powerful story, and a story that folks can hear, if they go back and replay One Night Stand. And then it was fun, like getting that band back together, with Two for the Road or Two More for the Road. That was a lot of fun too. And I remember watching that with my mother-in-law, and she's like, these guys are a hoot, and it just made everything fun. They always brought the fun.
I have my 2 CDs from that. I keep them. I look at them every so often. I just watch them. It's just a lot of fun.
It really is.
I went to both of them, and they were great. I sat by John's family, the first one. And they were just like laughing, like they couldn't believe him up there.
And John's face was so red.
I know.
Oh my goodness!
Because he did not like him being talked about.
No, and didn't like being in the spotlight. And then when you're sharing all those crazy things in front of a few hundred people, it's like, wonder your face is all red. It's good stuff. And then even the guest that we had on earlier today, Rick Ramirez from Local Vocals, when he and David arrived, just talking about how we were going to roll things out, and he had that wonderful story to share about winning the cream puff eating contest one time at the Dodge County Fair, and Uncle Bill was emceeing it, and kind of like didn't really want to give Rick the award because he was wearing more of the cream puff than he actually had eaten. But there was one year at the Dodge County Fair, I was on stage at Radio Park, and like when it gets full, it's a sea of people. And I remember seeing one of our teammates in a golf cart driving Uncle Bill slowly through all of those people to make his way to the stage at Radio Park, because he loved, even though he didn't always enjoy being in the spotlight, he loved being a part of things and being together with people.
He did. And then, like when you said he was one of the top billers or something, I totally believe that. But how could he not be with just being around? He could not go in public without saying hi or knowing a person. And that's why what they did in the morning show was, you just don't see that now. Like they're typically they're like, oh, what's your name? Where are you calling from? It's like they're like, oh, Rick from Reeseville. And,
I know, they knew everybody.
They knew everyone, every caller. They're like, oh, this is Rick again, and they just had all these different names and for people. And Bill was big with that, with giving nicknames to people.
Yeah, Bucko.
Yeah,
Bucko.
yeah. I've never been called Bucko. My grandpa didn't even call me Bucko.
Did he have a nickname for you? I didn't get a nickname.
I didn't either.
The fiery Medicare lady.
Well, he didn't call me that to my face.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh no, but it was just This was not an easy day. I knew it wasn't going to be. I did not want to be on the show.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Well,
it's
being
not.
here.
It's not you. It's just it's tough. Like when people that are so influential in our area, because I mean that's what we do. We care about people in our area, and they really did too. And that's why it's just it's tough to even talk about, but we have to look at remember what they did for us and the community, and they're always going to be around watching us, and that's why we're on the show. That's why this is so crazy. I never thought I would be on the radio /TV now, and all of a sudden it's just full circle. Like, wow, like, we wouldn't be here, and they really did a lot for our family, and we could never thank them enough or say it enough, and they wouldn't even accept it. They're like, no, you did that. You guys did that. And it's like, no, you did. We never would have stepped out of our comfort zone for that.
Oh, never. No.
So it was, I mean, what they did and what they do for so many businesses and people, that's why it hurts so much.
Yeah.
So it's a tough day, and it's really easier said than done we just got to remember the great things. But it still sucks. I mean,
it does. And also because it was so genuine, they were genuine and so sincere, and I really appreciated how they listened.
Yes.
Because not everybody does that, especially in this type of business, and there's an art to having a conversation, and it means something when someone is the real deal. Whether it's dealing with a business partner or someone that they're meeting for the first time at an event. Like, they really wanted to listen. They really wanted to get to know people. That's why they knew Rick from Rio was coming in, calling in, or something like that, and why they continue to be so loved. I heard someone call in this morning who thinks we should erect a statue of Bill somewhere in Beaver Dam. Maybe we could put him downtown with Benny the Beaver.
Oh.
I'm just teasing about that, but I mean, that's how much people love him, and to honor them in the appropriate way. And after John had passed, there was a lot of conversations about how do we honor that legacy, because that is the appropriate word, and that is why it's now the Good Karma Brands John Moser Children's Radiothon. That's why we have Bill McCullum Way. And when you talk about it being a hard day, yesterday, life moves on no matter how hard any given day is going to be. But it wasn't until I was on my way home to the beautiful city on the marsh a little bit before 8 o'clock last night that
alone that you stopped. Yep.
Yeah.
I did the same thing.
And it didn't take a James Taylor
alone.
song or any. It was just the quietness, and then when the reality sets in, when that quiet hits you. So, and it ebbs and flows. We know that. Like, something just be moving along, and then all of a sudden, like a wave, you'll just remember something for whatever reason, and it takes you right back there. And that's why I'm so happy that over the next couple of weeks, during the Bard Show, we will continue to pay tribute to Bill and share those memories and play those special songs. I know you mentioned Horsey, Keep Your Tail Up.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Everybody
Oh,
loves
my
that.
goodness. I heard Wade play that this morning. That's all that was in my head yesterday afternoon. And then even this morning, that is why my husband had mentioned that, because I'm just like getting ready. I'm like, Horsey, keep your tail up. Though we should laugh too, because they were all about having fun and
yes.
making sure that other people were enjoying themselves and being happy.
Well, and they were so proper, like just because you hear them growing up, you're like, oh, they're just like this, kind of like a father-like figure you hear every day, on the radio, and like, wow, there's everything. But then the first time I heard them MC, like not on air, I'm like, oh, they're human. Like they said a joke that was kind of dirty. Like I was like, oh, wow. And it was just completely different. I'm like, okay, I guess, because we're all human. And, so it's just, I was like, oh, so they're not just radio people, like they are just like everyone else. And
they're cutting loose.
Yeah. And it was just crazy to see that. I think the first time was, I forgot, it was it the lake benefit?
Oh, the
I
Beaver
think?
Dam Lake Improvement Association.
Oh,
Yes, and didn't John always do?
John did MC
Yep,
that all
and
the
he's saying these jokes and stuff, and I heard a couple swear words. I'm like, well, this must not be on the radio.
Well, he
obviously.
wasn't at work.
I know, but it was.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So, in John's honor, we continue to be a part of that event. Penny from the BDLIA had reached out after John had passed, asked if I would consider emceeing it. I didn't know anything about it, and so I was like, who else can help me with this? So Ninja and I have been hosting that event ever since John left us because of that love there and because of that community commitment. But we have not been telling blue jokes. We didn't know that was a thing. Do we have to like change up the banter then, toss in a few inappropriate words, some inappropriate jokes?
I guess the FCC was not watching that, but
It might have been something only John could get by with, right?
it was just so cool. I mean, it's because we're all human, and that's separating their lives, like John Mosier, Bill McCullum, radio voice, and radio person, to relaxing, having a drink, mingling with people, and I thought that's when they did their best work.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Matt.
Every conversation that I had with Bill, whether it was at the office or out, he always brought up John. It was always a part of the conversation.
Even
I feel
before
like,
he passed.
Yes, a piece of him was missing though after John passed.
Oh, yes.
I do believe that.
Yeah, Matt and I talked about that a little bit earlier this week. Sometimes it's hard to get over things, and when someone has been by your side as your best friend, as one of your coworkers, one of your teammates, sometimes it's hard to erase that pain, to make it completely go away. And neither one of them were fakers.
No.
So Bill's not going to fake anything and tell you everything's okay if it's not, nor would John.
And it's ingrained in my head, the announcement he made on the Barn Show when John passed, and he actually called him a brother. He's like, I feel like I lost a brother. And it was, I wish I didn't hear that, because like I still hear that.
I do too.
And it was.
He said that was one of the hardest things he had to do.
I remember being in my kitchen listening with my family, and I talked about that this morning when we opened up Hometown Today. Just wondering, yesterday, like, did we do this? And then I really did remember Bill saying on the air during that announcement that he thought about not doing the Barn Show. And then he thought what Moser would say about that. And there'd be a big clap of thunder up there, and he'd be mad. The show's got to go on. And then I remember Bill talking about getting the call from Chelsea. And you could hear it again, going back to no faking, always being genuine. You could hear the quiver in his voice. And
yes.
we all know how much strength and focus that took for him to get through. And so as I was alone with my thoughts last night, thinking about that and so many other things, it's like everybody should be like Bill, be a little bit more like Bill, because he was the guy that really took the time to care, to follow through, to listen, and to be honest. And you don't, I at least, I've not had a lot of people that genuine cross my path. So when that happens, you do have to recognize it and embrace it and feel really lucky for it.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine though how many years, they were like a couple. They really
Like
were.
the Odd Couple. Dun, 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 dun,
No, they
dun.
knew how to press each other's buttons. They would bicker. I mean, it was funny, and it was great entertainment on the radio.
Yeah.
And their differences of opinions and stuff. So it was, and sometimes how they couldn't stop laughing, and they had to you could just, because now that I do radio, I know you hear mics kind of moving and laughing in the background, not right in front of the mic.
But to be such legends and not let it go to your head.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill was probably one of the kindest, most humble men I've ever met.
Selfless.
Yes. I mean, truly. So
Yeah.
it never went to his head, any of his being a legend in the town, and people always wanting to
industry.
see him and, say hi to him and talk with him. I mean, he never let that go to his head. And if you're out, he would always speak to you. Hey, Sandy, how's it going? And I'm going to miss walking out of here, and he's not going to be up in that office.
I know. And I really appreciate you guys coming in to do the show today. And that went by really fast. I know we were all like, oh my goodness. And it's already time to close it out. Is there anything else you would like to share or say?
Uncle Bill, we love you and we miss you, and you'll never be forgotten. That is for sure.
I told him that on Wednesday. I said, you are such a legend. I said, and God is with you. You will be no pain. You will be feeling good and watching over us, but still keep us in line. And I said, still listen to the radio show.
Well, and
that
now
you made me do.
And actually, now he can start another morning show with John again. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I love that. That's good. We'll close it out that way. Thank you for being here today.
absolutely.
Sandy met Heiar with your Heiar Insurance team here on Senior Solutions on your hometown station. This has been a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program. All the love expressed during the program. Now I totally got off track. Let's see. Matt, help me out here. This is a paid program.
not.
Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Heiar Insurance.
Yes, and
not
not
WBEV or Good Karma Brands.